Hey there everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom, and this video is going to be top 5 read-alouds for reading with your family. This is a video that I am co-hosting here at Creative2xmom along with April from The Simple Rugged Path. She has a great channel about homeschooling and lots of books. We joke all the time on social media about how we are both book addicts and we have reading piles that are way too big. So we decided to get together and share with you guys our top 5 read-alouds for your family. And this was a very difficult list to narrow down. April, what were we thinking when we said top 5? I think it should have been like top 20, something like that. So I have a list in front of me that is kind of all notes and arrows and crossed out because I had so many books trying to narrow it down to my top 5. Now, I tried to keep in mind something that would appeal to a large variety of ages, but my books are probably more focused on preschool, kindergarten, up on through about 6th or 7th grade. The first one is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and you guys will see that I tend toward classic books, and I thought that having watched the movie that I would have some idea of how this book was going to go. But of course we all know that the book is so much richer than the movie, and my kids absolutely loved this. It's been a few years since we read this one, so they were probably about 4, 7, and 9 when we read it, and they really got into the story and the fantasy of it all and the imagination, and just got wrapped up in going to see the wonderful Wizard of Oz and how he was going to solve all their problems. What I really like about this book is that you come to find out that the characters have it within themselves to be heroes. They don't realize their wonderful qualities, their wonderful attributes until they go along through the story, and they actually have it within themselves to be the hero in their own story, which I think is great. The problem solving, the rising to occasion, those are all lessons that I want my kids to take away, and this book was absolutely full of that. So if you think you know The Wizard of Oz, you should pick up the book and absolutely read it with your kids. The second book that I want to share with you is another classic, and this is by E.B. White. It's The Trumpet of the Swan. You may know E.B. White from Charlotte's Web or from Stuart Little. I feel like those are probably his 2 more well-known books, but my favorite of the 3 is, of course, The Trumpet of the Swan. This book is so full of humor, so full of vocabulary. This swan is born without a voice, and so he has to learn to communicate. He learns to write. He actually goes to school. He gets a little slate around his neck and he writes, and he gets a trumpet. His father decides that he's going to steal a trumpet for this swan so that he can court, because of course a swan has to have his trumpet. It is absolutely hilarious. He travels all over the United States because he's going to earn the money and clear his father's name. I just love the vocabulary in this book. I love the humor in this book. It's very subtle, it's very witty, and it's kind of a higher level thinking humor. So we found ourselves laughing at this book so much. Absolutely have to read this one. My third book is Mr. Popper's Penguins, and a lot of us, I'm sure, have seen the movie with Jim Carrey, but if you go back and you read the book, it is even better than the movie. The story takes a slightly different turn because you're looking at a family from about the maybe 1940s, 1950s, and he and his wife decide that they are going to get these penguins. And it's all of the antics that ensue from having penguins. I mean, as you can imagine, having one penguin in your house, but they have multiple penguins in their home. And he is just very into like traveling and geography, and so that's how he ends up with this penguin. He asks to have this penguin shipped to him, and it's just all the antics. They train the penguins to perform and they go on tour. It's absolutely hilarious. It's good, clean humor. And it's so funny. It's so funny because you don't think about what could happen if you had these animals in your home, and then all of a sudden it's being played out in this story, and they're curious. They're very curious creatures, and so it's been played out in the story of all the craziness that they get into and how he ends up traveling in this troupe, and they're trying to get out of performing, but they have a kind of contract, and just everything that happens to these penguins. So funny. You have to go back and read that book. It's absolutely hilarious. The next book that I have to share with you is called The Cricket in Times Square. It's by George Selden, I believe. We just have an old paperback copy I picked up for like 25 cents at a library sale, and I was surprised how much we actually enjoyed this one. This cricket ends up in a newspaper stand in Times Square, and he meets this whole cast of characters. There's a mouse and a cat and their friends, and he ends up meeting this boy that works in the newspaper stand, and it's just all about his learning about the big city. Now, we live in kind of a rural area, so it's been a lot of fun for my kids to put themselves imagining in the crazy hustle and bustle train station of Times Square, and to see what this cricket goes through and the things that he learns. He ends up mesmerizing everybody by his ability. He picks up classical songs by ear, and he's able to play all these classical songs. He ends up touring, and it's all about his trying to work his way to get back home. So you've got this whole cast of characters. You've got Mario the boy, you've got the mouse Tucker, Harry the cat, and they're just educating this cricket on what it's like to live in the big city. So funny, so cute, very sweet, very endearing story. So I'm torn on which of the books to suggest for my 5th read aloud, and it would probably actually be Homer Price. Now, Homer Price is one of those books that I saw the cover and I thought, I'm not sure I really want to read this. This might lose my kids. I'm not sure they're going to be interested in this. But it's a whole collection of stories of this young man named Homer. He's in middle America around 1940s, 1950s, and again, it's just the antics and the predicaments that he finds himself in. It's a good snapshot of middle America around that time. So this is one of those books that I tend to pick up when we're studying more American history, more World War II-ish time period, just to give the kids an idea of what the US was like at that time, because they're all very normal day-to-day activities that he does, but they're foreign to us because of the time that it was set in, and a little bit of the location as well, because we're on the West Coast and this is middle America. But it's just good, clean humor, funny stories, set well in history, and just great read aloud to do with your kids. So that is our top 5 read alouds to read with the kids. As you guys can see, I love classic books, and there were a few great books in here that I didn't even get a chance to mention that you probably are all aware of, but I'm just going to throw them out here right now as honorable mentions. Of course, the Little House on the Prairie series, and our absolute favorite of that was Little Cabin in the Big Woods. It's the first one. That is our favorite in this series that we love to read over and over again. We really enjoyed the Indian in the Cupboard series. My kids could not get enough of that. We couldn't stop at the first book. We had to read through the entire series. That was a great one to read together. Stone Fox. If you have younger kids, I would say around kindergarten through 2nd grade, all my kids loved Stone Fox. It's about this young man who is trying to save the family home, and so he goes out and he runs a dog sled race. That's an incredible book, just one of those incredible adventure books if you've got a kid that's really into adventures. Anything in the Paddington series. We love Paddington because he's not mischievous, he's not trying to get into trouble, and yet he's always in trouble. One of the others that we did as a read aloud that we all agreed that we enjoyed but was better to be read on its own, and that was the Phantom Tollbooth. Only because it's a phenomenal book. Great for vocabulary, great epic adventure type book, but there's a lot of play on words, and they're hard to catch as a read aloud. So you have to be very careful when you read that one. Even if you have done it as a read aloud with your kids, I would suggest that your kids read it when they get older, because there's so much in the text that you don't always catch as a read aloud. I could just go on and on about read alouds. We have loved reading aloud as a family over the years and have discovered so many great characters and so many great adventures that it was really, really hard to narrow it down to 5. So I tried to pick 5 that probably were slightly more unusual, like Homer Price. But I have to stop it now because I could just keep talking and talking all day about books. I want to know from you. Leave me a comment down below. Do you read out loud with your family, and what would you include in your top 5 read alouds? Also, don't forget to check out the description box below for a link to April's channel. I know you're going to love her, as well as a link to the playlist. I am so excited to check out everybody else's read aloud books because I have already started formulating our read aloud list for next year. So I'm looking for some new suggestions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Happy reading, and we will see you next time. Bye guys.